Good morning, members, and welcome to the Port Health and Environmental Services Committee meeting being held today on Tuesday, the 22nd of July 2025. I can confirm that we are quorate. As you are aware, the public element of today's meeting is being recorded, and those participating in the meeting have given consent to their inclusion. The recording will be available on the City Corporation's YouTube channel following the meeting, and it shall be retained for up to 1 civic year. At the first item, we have apologies. Apologies have been received from Deputy Caroline Haynes, Deputy Christopher Bowden, Hugh Selker, and I believe Simon Duckworth and Layla Bolton are joining us online. Do members know of any other apologies? Seeing none, we therefore move on to item 2, which is declarations. Does a member have a declaration to declare? Seeing none, we therefore move on to item 3, Chairman, which are the minutes. Just to note that these are to agree, and we have received advancement of a slight amendment, noting that Deputy Fredericks had put herself forward to be the representative on Thames 21. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions relating to the minutes, either in terms of accuracy or other than what's noted? Marianne.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just to ask for an update, please, on page 13 under questions, the issue of the noise on the South Bank affecting the residents, mainly over at Globeview. Do we have an update, please?
Do we have an update on that, Rachel?
If I may provide a short update on the issue of busking. So just to remind members, officers are still undertaking a proactive at the busiest times approach to busking on the South Bank. So our officers go over the river, monitor, and then warn and ask people to turn the music down. There were a few changes over at Southwark, so they have a new leader. So they're taking up the position in this month. So there's a new leader over there. There's also a consideration of a tourist tax. I don't know if you saw the article in the news, and they're pushing for that in order so that they can fund additional community protection measures over there on the South Bank. We have been successful in Southwark have actually changed the signage in the South Bank, so there's now much more robust signage, and we've had feedback from residents that has had an effect, and it's also easier for enforcement to have the much more robust signage that we can point to say actually there's no busking here, or you need to turn it down, which has been really helpful. We do continue to liaise with Southwark, have meetings with them to try and encourage a more robust approach on their side in terms of enforcement, but they are struggling with resources and allocating resources to it currently, but we'll continue to do that. But just to add that the bridges do remain clear. We have our enforcement office on the bridges, and that does remain clear of buskers.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Can I just ask, do Southwark actually issue licenses for busking? And if they don't, would they consider doing that with the provision that no amplified music? Because I think that would help enforce and regulate, but equally it's the amplification that is the problem, not the buskers themselves, it's just the amplification.
Yeah, so Southwark currently do not have a licensing regime for buskers, but we can add it to the next meeting agenda and speak to them about it. Yeah.
Just to add to that, can we identify the responsible cabinet member? Because I'm quite happy to sort of have a member-to-member discussion on this if that is deemed appropriate.
Yeah.
I know we have done in the past, and it helped for a while, and then it sort of tailed off a bit as personnel change. Any other questions relating to the minutes? If not, are they agreed? Thank you. That takes us to item 4, which is the appointments to subcommittees and representatives to outside bodies. Blair, can you let us know? We have had some names put forward for these.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start with members that have put themselves forward for the various appointments to the representative bodies. Deputy Timothy Butcher has put himself forward for the projects and procurement position. Deputy Marion Fredericks has already confirmed for the Thames 21 position. Additionally, the Deputy Chairman has confirmed that he would like to take up his Crime and Disorder Scrutiny Committee position. So if we can first agree those appointments in the first instance, unless there's any other member that wishes to stand, is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you, Chairman. There's an additional place or two places for the local plan subcommittee meeting and the cross river partnership position. I believe Deputy Fredericks is already a member on the local plan subcommittee meeting, so that therefore leaves a vacancy there. So in the first instance, would any member from this committee like to put themselves forward for the local plan subcommittee meeting? If not, Chairman, we can roll it to the next meeting to put forward.
Yeah. Are we sure we don't have anybody who would like to be on local plans? I think they only actually have maybe one meeting left of the current cycle in relation to the local plan. But Mercy Haggerty, thank you very much. That's appreciated.
Thank you. Is that agreed by the committee? Thank you. And the last position is the Cross River Partnership. Does any member wish to put themselves forward?
Okay, on that one, can we do what we did with Thames 21 maybe and circulate, get some more information about what they do and what their impact is and so on, and circulate that before the next meeting. And also I'll find out sort of when their own timetable is for meetings and how often they meet and that sort of information. So we'll get that for the next meeting so that we can get that one covered off. Is that agreed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We therefore now move on to item 5, which is the Revenue Outturn 2024-25. This is a joint report of the Chamberlain Executive Director of Environment for information on pages 15 to 22 of your agenda pack.
Jenny Pitcairn, are you here? I think you're going to make it. Oh, yeah, there you are. Right. I think you can give us a very brief introduction to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report sets out the revenue outturn position for your committee services for 2024-25 financial year. So the overall position is an overspend of 2.605 million. Within that, the local risk position under the direct control of the Executive Director of Environment is an overspend of 1.27 million, and that itself comprises really two main elements. The first, which I would call the underlying operational budget, the Director achieved an underspend of £246,000. That's made up of a range of variances across the services which are set out in Appendix 1 on page 20. The second element relates to transfers from reserves. As part of managing her overall departmental local risk budget, the Executive Director elected to draw down £1.516 million less from reserves than had been budgeted, so less income basically creates an overspend. That was possible due to further operational underspends across the department. Reserves are by their nature finite, so where expenditure can be funded from underspends rather than using those balances, that means we can preserve those for future use. The remainder of the overspend was primarily on recharges, which are matched by corresponding underspends in Finance Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Any questions on this report? John Hurley.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple on the reasons for the significant variations. The waste collection, the £50,000 royalty income, is that with Corey? Where does that come from?
It's Veolia.
Oh, Veolia, right, thank you. And on the waste disposal, £40,000 for third-party waste disposal. What happens to that? Do we know where that waste goes? Because, I mean, you know, obviously it's out of our hands, but is it our responsibility? Should we have a moral responsibility of where that waste is going once it's left us? And the third question, sorry, is on the cemetery, 113,000. Does this mean, I mean, because we're still cremating people are still dying. So does this mean they're going elsewhere? Thank you.
Okay, on the second, on the second question, Joe Kingston.
Thank you, Chairman. So effectively that income is derived through the Corrie contract. So it's waste which runs through Walbrook Wharf, which we receive a royalty payment for. So it would be third-party commercial waste. We do know where it's going. It's going the same place that all the other waste goes, which is to Belvedere, which we visited last year, so on the Thames. So yeah, we're more than happy that's where it's going.
And on the third question, I don't know if this is one for Jenny or maybe Graham.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be able to answer that.
Okay, Jenny. Oh, sorry, Graham. Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Income varies at the cemetery and crematorium depending on what product is purchased by the deceased family. So if they're buying a brand new grave, it can range anywhere from 6,000 upwards. If they already have a grave and it's a second interment, that's only 1,800. So we can't always prejudge exactly what product is purchased. It all depends on the family. Our volumes are pretty much the same as they were for the previous 2 or 3 years. It's just the choice of what type. And again, if you buy a new grave from us, the cheapest in theory 6,000, but you can go up to 45,000. So it depends on which type of grave is bought as well.
Thank you. No, it was just because it's the slower growth in cremations than anticipated.
No, it's purely the variation of the
Oh,
products.
okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Marianne.
Thank you, Chairman. Page 20.1, the public conveniences, the overspend due to the business rates of mothballed conveniences. How many are there and where are they located? And in terms of cost, how much more would it actually cost to unmothball them and allow us to use them?
Obviously, we have a major paper coming to our next meeting, October meeting, specifically on the issue of the costs and the locations and so on. I think I'd rather keep that.
Yeah, exactly that. We don't have that available. It will be included with the information will be included in that report that comes forward in after recess.
Thank you. And Stuart Thompson.
Yes, Chairman, I have a question as to paragraph 4, trying to understand what that means, because where there is an overspend on capital, it seems that the overspends are offset by corresponding underspends in Finance Committee. Can you explain what that actually means, please?
Jenny?
Certainly. So capital entries, depreciation are technical accounting entries rather than any cash leaving the organisation. So the cost of depreciation for assets that are used by your committee are charged to your committee, but because there is no cash leaving the organisation, we show a credit elsewhere to make sure that the overall position for the organisation remains correct. So there's a credit in Finance Committee. What we call a capital contra is a technical accounting point.
Yes, there's double entry accounting, I think, from memory, but I mean, in effect, it doesn't actually mean there's a cash cost.
Exactly that, yes.
Okay, thank you, Tim Butcher.
Thank you, Chairman. Different question on the subject of public conveniences. The overspend is mainly due to business rates for mothballed conveniences. Why wasn't there a budget for it? You must have known that you needed to pay the business rates on them, and you must have paid them in the previous year. Is there something wrong with the budget?
Jenny?
We had not been paying them for some time on these conveniences because there was an exemption given by government for public conveniences. However, that no longer applies to conveniences that are not in use for that purpose.
Simon Burrows.
Thank you, Chair. Just item number 7, the cemetery again. The new costs for construction of grave vaults at 100,000. Obviously, that sounds like quite a lot of work constructing the grave vaults. Can I clarify, is that expenditure that's effectively netted off against the fees that the families pay, or is this something separate? Thank you.
So we had a project to build 20 fully constructed vaults in line with the original Victorian vaults that were built. We had a 10 to 15 year projection on selling all of those. Year 1, we've sold 2 already, which all bar 5,000 recovers our costs.
Does that answer your question, Simon? Okay. Any other questions on this report, which is an information report? So that is to receive. Town Clerk, agenda item number 6.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 6 is the Trading Standards Team update. It's a report of the Executive Director of Environment for information on pages 23 to 28 of your agenda pack.
Okay, do we have a brief introduction on this one? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I'm Steve Plale. I'm the Trading Standards Manager. the report gives a good flavour of the work we've been doing in trading standards for the last 6 months or so. I'll just pick out a couple of things to highlight. Operation Broadway, that's our initiative to try and tackle investment fraud, where we work in partnership with lots of different agencies, including City Police, the Financial Conduct Authority, HMRC, and a few others besides. We meet every 2 weeks. We have a really good relationship with City of London Police to the extent they now come to us for advice, which is really good to see. The fun part of the job is when we actually find a boiler room, which is an operation that's normally young people trying to sell investments to vulnerable consumers. So trading standards have great powers of entry, so we can go into offices, find out what's going on and disrupt them very vigorously, which we do. The current flavour of the month in the investment fraud world is art. So if anyone rings you up offering to sell you some art, come and see me. I'll mention vapes. Vapes has been in the news quite a lot recently. The legislation around vapes falls to trading standards to enforce. So you'll be aware that on the 1st of June, a single-use ban on vapes came into force. So we've been out and about conducting inspections in the city. City traders tend to be reasonably well behaved. We do find some examples where illegal products are being sold and we deal with those. It's a very fast-moving landscape in the vapes world. There's further legislation coming along next year, which is going to ban child-appealing flavours and designs. And also there's plans for a licensing regime for premises selling tobacco and vapes. So watch this space. And I'll finally just quickly mention, if I may, we've been doing quite a lot of work with online platforms, the likes of Temu, TikTok, Amazon, that sell products, particularly sales by what are called third-party sellers. There's been lots and lots of issues with product safety, particularly with cosmetics, electrical goods, toys, and personal protective equipment. We get sucked into this whole thing in the city because we tend to have quite a lot of businesses that have offices in the city, so that's our involvement. But it's been very interesting nonetheless. The legislation as it stands with the online platforms is wholly inadequate. There's a bill going through Parliament at the moment, and we're working very closely with the Office of Product Safety and Standards to make sure that the right thing is done by consumers when the legislation is finally introduced. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got just one question, which is that there's been a lot of publicity nationally recently about the sale of contraband tobacco and cigarettes, sometimes using fronts of barber shops. Is that something we've come across in the city?
No, it's not. We've tried to find it. And we had operations previously where we go into premises with specially trained sniffer dogs to try and find tobacco products, which are very well concealed. It seems to be a problem in other parts of the country, but I think because of the unique nature of the City of London, it doesn't lend itself to those sort of transactions, but we do try and find.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Marianne.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say thank you for the report? It's a very small team, but it's highly effective, and it sounds like you're going to be busier in the coming months and years with the changes in legislation. One of the issues that at the moment is going around is lots of texts to vulnerable people asking them to sign up for their winter payment fuels, even some of us who aren't actually entitled to them. And whilst we might realise that they are trying to scam, so do we actually put out warning notices on the city's website from your department to highlight the current scams? I mean, I always put them up on Facebook saying, be careful, be careful. But what do we do proactively to make our residents and city workers aware of these scams that are ongoing and current? Thank you.
Steve.
Thanks for the question. It's an interesting question. There is a national scams team which is funded by National Trading Standards that puts out lots of messaging around the current flavour of the month scams. You make a good point about what we do to try and promote that more externally, and I think that's a conversation perhaps we need to have with our comms team to see how they can support us in that. But I think that's something that is worth looking further into to try and make sure people are aware of the current scams that are going out there.
Thanks for that. Any other questions on John Foley?
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. This is very interesting. Thank you for all the wonderful work you do. You mentioned vapes and the new bill going through Parliament. There's been quite a lot in the papers recently about snus, which are nicotine patches. And now even very young children are having their gums are just disappearing. Is there anything, I know we have to abide by the law here, but is there anything we can do to stop or to control the sale of snus to children? And my second question is about the food ratings. It seems odd to spend all this money on giving out food ratings and then there's no legal requirement to post them. So obviously we see them when they've got a rating of 4 or 5, but anything less than 3, is there no way that this could go forward? I know, again, you have to abide by the law, that establishments should say what their food rating is. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I'll do the first part of that, and my line manager Joe will pick up the second part. As far as snus is concerned, when we do our inspections, which we do regularly every quarter with an expert from Hackney Trading Standards, actually, because it's such a complex area of product safety, we haven't found any snus. It's not something we find. We tend to find illegal vape products in quite small quantities. It's not something we've seen here, and maybe it's partly due to the fact that we haven't got many education establishments where, you know, kids will go into those sorts of shops to buy those products. But we are very vigilant, so when we do our inspections, we look through the whole premises that we're inspecting. Any illegal products are seized, but snus hasn't been a major issue for us in the past.
Picking up on the food rating, unfortunately, it's not mandatory to publicise them, but it is something that we're lobbying the Food Standards Agency to make mandatory. So I actually really welcome your question on this, because we've just done a recent study using our trading standards apprentice to carry out a survey within the city on how well they're being displayed. That's actually been passed to the FSA as evidence, and we are lobbying heavily with the FSA and the London food groups to get the scheme to be made mandatory, not just within London, but across the UK, because it's recognised that it is a problem. So thank you very much for your question, because I can now say that it's been raised at our committee that we do need to have this put in as a mandatory scheme. So thank you very much. I'll take that forward.
Yes, I mean, I think you're dead right. It does seem sort of quite bizarre that those ratings don't have to be displayed, and therefore those who are substandard are sort of getting away with it simply by not putting up their stickers. Okay, any other questions on the trading standards report? If not, this is another information report to receive, which takes us on to the next item, item 7, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 7, which is the Air Quality Annual Status Report for 2024. This is a report of the Executive Director of Environment for information on pages 29 to 52 of your agenda pack.
And this is Ruth Calderwood.
Thank you, Chairman. For those of you who've not met me, I'm Ruth Calderwood. I'm the Air Quality Manager, and air quality is a statutory function for us. The report provides a summary of our annual status report that we're required as part of our statutory duties to submit to the Greater London Authority each year. It contains air quality data that we've been collecting across the square mile, and also summarises some of the action that we've taken during 2024. Air quality across the square miles improved substantially over the past 10 to 15 years, and now nearly all locations meet national targets. The report itself has been put together by Paul Bentley, our air quality officer, who's sat to my right, and Paul's happy to answer any questions on the report, and I'll pick up any questions that fall outside the report and on general air quality policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Any questions on this report? Marianne.
Should I ask my question about idling engines here? Or
yes, actually, that'd be helpful. Yes.
So we've been very proactive in campaigning to stop taxi drivers and people sitting in their vehicles running their engine. It seems to come in peaks and troughs. So when we step back from the enforcement, it starts to pick up again. I've recently had a number of complaints from residents who have got taxi drivers around the hotels parking literally outside 2 meters from their bedroom windows, running engines all night long. And the noise has been reported to the department. But what can we do to perhaps ask the hotels, when they've got events on and they know they're going to have a large number of chauffeur-driven cars, to ensure that their chauffeurs are quite quiet, especially at night, but don't run their engines. It's not helping our pollution levels, and equally going straight into bedroom windows is upsetting the residents, and quite rightly so. So what can we do to be more proactive rather than just doing an enforcement and then sitting back? And then how can we keep the momentum going? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Ruth. Sorry, Ian, you're going to come in on this.
So, and thank you for that question. It's not one that I'd actually picked up on before, so it's an interesting wrinkle to what we're doing. Appreciate it. There's a question about identifying those locations to start off with, but if that can be done, then we have the out of hours in noise and pollution enforcement team is actually provided by cleansing and our street environment officers that are in the city 24/7. They can't issue penalty charge notices in a parking sense, and we don't have parking enforcement in 24/7, but actually that's just the end of the process. Actually, the key thing is the engagement with the drivers and also the businesses, and actually the SEOs are better trained to not just worry about the vehicles and if it's taxis, but actually walking into the business, walking into the hotel and actually having a more adult conversation than just sort of dealing with a taxi driver. So I think it's an interesting question. We'll talk from our side because we do provide that 24/7 coverage for not just these sorts of issues, but all sorts of noise and complaints and everything else that do go on out of hours. So that's in-house with the corporation and within environment. And we'll talk to Ruth's team and see how we might be able to take that forward. Chairman.
Thanks for that. So we have Deborah Oliver, then we have Layla Bolton, who is online. And because it's a for information rather than decision item, I will take the question, but I'll take Deborah's question first.
Thank you. It was really good to see that the pollution levels in Beach Street have fallen since 2018, but they're still at quite a high level. And we are discussing at Streets and Walkways the reduction of traffic through Beach Street. So I just wondered if there's any guidance on how serious the levels are, because they are, you know, the highest on the chart. So although they've gone down, they do seem still quite high to me. So is there any sort of assessment of the sort of health risks around it? And my sort of second point was around the touch screens to explore the new Air Aware web tool at the Barbican Library. Again, I would just encourage more communication about it because it was something I as a resident wasn't aware of, but it looks great. So perhaps we could have a bit more communication about it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ruth, do you want to take the bit about Beach Street?
Thanks, yeah, I'll pick up the question about Beach Street. You're right, levels have gone down, and in Beach Street, the concentrations of nitrogen dioxide do actually meet the national targets. What's happened over time, as more health research has taken place, it's considered that the national targets now probably aren't tight enough, and the World Health Organization has actually recommended tighter targets. And what we've done at the City Corporation with our latest air quality strategy, we recognise that, and we're aiming to work towards the World Health Organization guidelines. So even though levels in Beach Street meet the national targets, we're going to continue with action to bring levels down further, and that involves a whole range of things that we do across the square mile, bearing in mind that most of the pollution that we actually measure does come from outside of our boundary. So there is still a health impact, not as great as it was, but it is getting better and heading in the right direction.
Thanks for that. And
just generally, thanks for your point about the touch screens in the Barbican. We will take that back and we will make sure they're publicised more widely.
Okay, thank you very much. And so I'll now go to Layla Bolton on screen. Just by way of explanation, because this committee performs a statutory local government function, technically speaking, people online can't participate, vote in the meeting. However, because this is an information item, my interpretation is that it's okay to ask a question. So go ahead, Layla.
Thank you, Peter. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Right. Hello. Good morning. Mercy Haggerty and I recently accompanied the air quality team on an idling action day, and they do a splendid job with the resources and rules they have in place. But we have identified 3 areas where we think officers could benefit from members and committee support, and I'd love your thoughts. 1, we think there's scope to coordinate road closures for construction works to minimize pollution hotspots, such as the one on Beach Street that Deborah mentioned. On the day that we accompanied Paul Bentley on his patrol, we saw both London Wall and Beach Street were closed simultaneously, which unnecessarily aggravated the pileup as cars sought a way through. So I think that's just a matter of coordination within the corporation. 2, we think there's a case to lobby the Department of Transport for the city to be allowed to post bigger and much more visible signs than the ones that you see at the moment, pointing out that idling is an offence. At the moment, they're above people's eye line and in tiny writing, way above the warnings about the fines people pay for parking offences. And 3, we'd like to examine the incentives that exist for parking attendants to issue fines for drivers who decline to switch off their engines. They do have the power to issue these, but very few are issued. And you can imagine it would be much easier just to fine people for parking in the wrong place and moving on after photographing them than standing there for a few minutes waiting for them to turn off their engines and then issuing them with a fine if they refuse. So thank you for your thoughts and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for that. It's quite a lot to think about, and so it's very constructive, interesting suggestions. Who would like to sort of take this in terms of what are we able to do now? What will we need to go to government to lobby for legislation? And is there anything that we are able to do now that we are not doing within this list? Is anybody able to answer those questions? I mean, Ian Hughes, you're going to take.
I can deal with a couple of them. Starting with the last one first. In terms of the enforcement process for parking tickets, penalty charge notices. I mean, we tend to find that once you start writing one, that the drivers, frankly, they don't switch off their engines, they drive away. So I mean, it's the actual conversation we have found is the thing to actually explain why it is that they are committing a contravention, because otherwise they just move and they carry on doing it. So the number that we issue is small, but it is some. Whereas I would have to say, even though when the legislation to allow us to issue parking tickets has been there for a while, we didn't used to do any because it was something that it is really difficult to do, but we are pushing that with our parking enforcement contractor to make sure they are having those conversations, and if drivers don't do it, then they actually issue the PCN. In terms of the coordination of works, there are ongoing works at London Wall at the moment, which means there is a lane closure, but London Wall is open. But we appreciate that there's a number of other works that go on in the area that have to work around that. I'd say we take a very proactive approach in terms of identifying other works to go on when we have major closures, and there is a closure of Fleet Street at the moment in one direction. We have taken that opportunity of a particular major set of works that's closed a street to incorporate a whole bunch of other activities in that same closure, which has actually saved 40 days worth of additional disruption to Fleet Street. And that is business as usual for us. Maybe we should do more to promote that, but we do quite a lot of it. And yeah, but very happy to say that needs to be a continuing focus for our team in terms of our traffic management section. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so and I think the final point related to signage. Is there anything we can do as maybe as we renew this signage to make it more clear?
Signage is always a difficult one because we have a number of areas of our organisation asking us to put up signage about various things, and our challenge is to actually keep that proportionate. And that's whether that's about policing or transport or noise or idling engines, and it isn't straightforward, otherwise our streets will be proliferated. That said, we are looking at a wider wayfinding review that's linked to Destination City, and if there's an opportunity to incorporate this within that, then we will.
Thank you very much. Yes, I mean, certainly in my time on the committee, you see certain things go through cycles of people where very sensibly suggestions are made for additional signage in relation to issues, and then you get to the point in the cycle where people are demanding removal of street clutter and minimizing it, and then you eventually get back into the cycle of going the other way. Yeah, I mean, certainly if there are signs there anyway, putting them where they can clearly be read, it makes
Just
sense.
one plug, Joe. Do you want to just say that we are using? Will you be trying to be innovative about that? We're trying not to say no.
Was just a suggestion. Yeah, and so we, for the SEOs and the enforcement that they do, we've taken the approach that you may have seen them. We put them quite tactically out the front of the Guildhall, but some Correx triangular boards over the top of the bollards. So that was sort of focused on a campaign around enforcement, and perhaps it was something we could look to if it's an enforcement, a bit of a wider push. We can do that temporarily for a month or so, and then remove them. So that gives us kind of quite high visibility for a period of time. And then we can take them away. So that's perhaps something we could look at as well for that. Yeah,
I think that's an excellent idea. I mean, we had the no ifs, no buts campaign about cigarette butts, for instance, which seemed to be effective. And so that's, what I do. If we're putting up these things anyway, we might as well use them for messaging. Okay, any other questions on this agenda item 7? Jason Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. I commend officers on the clear improvement in air quality at the Aldgate School and surrounding areas. This is a real achievement and testament to sustained effort. Given the success in Aldgate, can the committee now consider targeted monitoring in Port Soken, particularly around Mansell Street, Goodman Yard and key junctions, to ensure residents on the nearby Mansell Street estate benefit from the same attention and interventions? And secondly, the report focuses rightly on annual and daily averages, but short-term spikes in pollution, especially at peak times of day, remain a health risk, particularly for children and vulnerable residents. Can officers explore options for reporting and responding to these short-term peaks more visibly? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jason. Ruth, is this one? Sorry.
I'll take that. Thanks for the question. In terms of monitoring locations, we complete a review every year. So within the 12-month period, we'll take any locations that have been suggested, like the ones you just mentioned, and then tie it in with our review. It's usually completed around November each year. So if you do have any locations within a specific ward, please let us know and we'll look at them. And then in terms of peak times, the monitoring that we complete is kind of done in 2 different stages. So the automatic monitoring that we complete is of a high resolution. So that's sort of every 15 minutes we'll get a concentration reading. But for nitrogen dioxide, about 80 of our locations don't have that resolution. So they take a monthly average, and then we will get 12 readings through a year to create that annual average. So we have sort of that point where we try and get the best of both worlds between those 2 sets of monitoring. What we also do for to look at short-term peaks, if we're looking at a specific area, we might bring in some additional equipment to try and get those short-term peaks. But on a sort of a business as usual throughout the year, we have those 2 sets. So it kind of depends where the monitoring sort of locations are.
Thank you very much for that. Jason, do you want to come back up?
Yeah, if that's okay. It just quickly, I mean, so a resident brought up with me about the fact that we do 24-hour monitoring, and I just wondered at what time of day is that? Because obviously if you're doing a reading at every 24 hours at like midnight, it's going to give you a bit of a skewed kind of information about what's happening in that location, So as I say, I mean, I had a meeting with a resident. They were showing me some sort of very detailed sort of screenshots of stuff. They monitor it quite regularly, and what it was showing was sometimes hourly you are seeing sort of sometimes things creeping up a little bit here and there, and I just want to make sure that's picked up on, because obviously, as we all know, sort of particulate matter has an impact on young kids. So yeah, just really, if you can clarify on that, it'd be really helpful for me to feed back to them. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely for particulate matter, we will look at the trends throughout days to see where there are periods where we think pollution is highest. I think the Beach Street example given earlier is a great example. So you will see peaks at certain times, and we can use that to say, if there are any kind of mitigation we can bring in at specific points of the day. So although our sort of targets are based on longer term, we will still look at the trends throughout days, throughout weeks, throughout months to see if there's anything that crops up.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on this before we move on, Marianne?
And on page 32.11, you've highlighted that you do additional monitoring, and all of those are contained in Appendix 1, page 35. But you've highlighted 4 areas where we're currently breaching, exceeding the national standards. 2 of those are red routes. So do we have any control, because it's TfL, in being able to reduce the traffic and the pollution? Do you think at the Old Bailey, the new public realms scheme will help reduce pollution? And are we monitoring, going to monitor once that scheme's been developed, so we can see the benefits of public realms schemes on pollution? And we saw that with Aldgates, with the impact on Aldgate School. And thank you very much for identifying on page 51 the tube monitoring. And I always think it's a bit ironic that we have the pollution vents for the tubes tend to be in areas where you've got public open space, you know, Trinity Square Gardens, Royal Exchange. Perhaps in future we can steer new public vents, pollution vents, away from public spaces where the public will be gathering. But what can we do to, again, reduce the emissions from those vents? Some of them are very old. Are we able to put filters on to reduce the pollution, or encourage TfL to do so? Thank you.
Do we have an answer on this one? This sort of was quite a sort of technical question about the location and function of the.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so the 4 roads that you've highlighted, what we're doing with those is we're doing some focused work. We've just started some focused work on those. We're taking the locations that breach the standard, and then we're doing detailed monitoring around them. You're right to pick up 2 of them as red routes. We will be in dialogue with TfL and GLA. They're classed as one of our air quality partners. It's an official thing now, so we can go to them and ask them what they will be doing to contribute to improvements on those roads. So that's something that we're going to be rolling out over the next year. The Old Bailey, yes, we've been monitoring the baseline before the public realm works there. So we do have a good set of base data. That's stopped now. Now the work's going to start, and then we will be doing detailed monitoring again once the public realm is in place. So we will have a before and after, and we do that. We've got a lot of data for bank, as you know, and there are other areas of the city that we do a before and after, and we were able to successfully demonstrate that around the Aldgate School, as you rightly mentioned. So we are very keen to monitor the impact of that. And then the last one around the tube vents, again, the Old Bailey, the Grace Church Street area, there's a tube vent there. I don't know whether you were, but we actually did some detailed monitoring the particulates that we thought might be coming from that tube vent. And we were pleased to see that actually we didn't detect anything. We put particulate monitors all the way around and didn't detect that. So we're not sure whether there is such a massive source of particulates from them. But again, it's something that we will be liaising with TfL over as part of our general conversations with them around improving air quality across the square mile. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Did you want to come back on, or are you okay with that?
Well, I just also wanted to ask, with all the figures in Appendix 1, what's your targets? I mean, they're going down, but what's our target? It's 29. I mean, obviously 29 is good compared to 64, whatever. But really, what do we want to get down to, apart from 0, which I don't think is going to be achievable? But what are we setting our sights on?
So we've committed ourselves in our latest air quality strategy to meeting 30 for nitrogen dioxide by 2030. That is 10 units below the national standard. So the national standard is 40. But we've made a commitment to meet 30.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, Mercy, that's okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. The report is fantastic, and I know you're an exceptionally good team from talking to other boroughs. It's of particular interest to residents as to what the indoor air quality is. So I just wondered whether you have any upcoming projects on investigating that. Thank you.
Indoor air quality.
Yeah, thank you. We've actually got a programme at the moment looking at indoor air quality. This is a piece of work we're doing with the London Borough of Hackney, and we've engaged with residents both within the square mile and Hackney, and we've worked with a small organisation for the residents to monitor air quality within their homes and actually correlate it with activity that they're doing. It's more of an educational piece. We don't have any statutory or regulatory powers around it, so it's just trying to inform people about the activities that they do within their own home that can lead to higher levels of air pollution. For example, cooking activities, burning candles, using certain types of paint, cleaning materials. So it's just making people aware if they have a particular vulnerability, what they can do to help within their own home.
Okay, thank you very much. John Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. I'll put my hand up to mention about the particular measurements we made at Greyfriars Square, but Ruth has already described that. So no question anymore. One point on the indoor air quality, just for information, I was selected randomly for that, so I put my name down, and so I'll let the committee know what it looks like and how clean my house is when the time comes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Layla, I don't know if you want to ask a question. It's difficult for us to track. We typically don't deal with comments on Teams during these meetings, but happy to take a question from you on this item, which is also an information item, if you wish. I'm gonna. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so in the square I used to live in Gibson Square, we were exploring using the air shaft from the underground as a source of communal heating. That's all I wanted to say. And I know that CitGen is a big project in the city that doesn't use that still uses fossil fuels, but it shows the potential of community heating. That was my question. Sorry, and thanks for letting me speak, Peter.
It's okay. Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to make a comment on that? But I think that's a helpful observation. I'd like to move on now. That is also an information item. So that is to receive, which takes us to item number 8, which is questions. We did have notice of one question, but it's been dealt with in the debate we've just had, which takes us to item 9. I don't have any additional urgent business, and item number 10, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chairman. That's the exclusion of the public. Do members agree to exclude the public? Agreed. Thank you. Please bear with us whilst we end the live stream.